Coming in hot at number 1, White Knuckle. Have you ever played Uncharted? You remember that tiny little sliver of the game where you're hanging from ledges? Well, imagine you take that and you turn that into your entire life. That's White Knuckle. This is a first-person speed climbing roguelite set in Substructure 17, an underground stack of silos, scaffolding, and crooked platforms that feels like a factory someone rage quit halfway through building. You spend your time scrambling upward through rust and concrete, hunting for anything that might count as a handhold while the walls press in and the ceiling stays stubbornly theoretical. And the presentation will keep that same attitude. Harsh lighting, blocky geometry, minimal UI, and an industrial atmosphere that makes every jump feel like an OSHA case study in progress. Once the run starts, the game becomes a back and forth between your hands, your gear, and the terrible plan that you just committed to at full sprint. Movement runs on momentum, so you'll barrel into jumps, snap your view towards grab points, plant improvised anchors, and hurl rebar into gaps to fake a foothold when the wall runs out before you do. Roots shuffle hazards around each climb, pickups drift into new places, and the threat rising from below keeps you choosing between a cautious line and, man, this is gonna look great in the replay type of disaster. What makes White Knuckle stand out is how seriously it treats climbing as its whole deal, letting you talk entirely in leaps that blur into scrambles and mid-air regrets, all stitched into one long attempt not to repaint the bottom of the shaft with your spine. Number 2. MegaBonk. MegaBonk throws you into a third-person pit of chaos and tells you to last as long as you can while the world fills up with things that want to bonk you into paste. It's a solo dev 3D roguelike survival built around sprinting through chunky, procedurally generated arenas where ramps, cliffs, platforms, and choke points are the name of the game. Your character auto-attacks anything that wanders into range, so your main job is steering the madness, weaving through swarms, sliding across slopes, and circling big threats while the screen erupts in numbers and explosions. The tone matches the name, with loud visuals, goofy flavor, and a roster that includes chimps in sunglasses and other deeply unserious heroes, which suits a game that just passed 1 million copies sold and crashed straight into award conversations on pure word of mouth. Once a run starts, MegaBonk becomes a rolling argument between your movement, your build, and your appetite for risk. Experience gems scatter across the map. Every pickup feeds a level, and every level hands you a fresh upgrade card that nudges the run in a new direction, stacking beams, orbiting projectiles, shockwaves, or even stranger toys into a build that feels wildly different from the last one. 20 unlockable characters and dozens of items push that variety even further, and silver from each attempt feeds into a huge quest and meta progression system that opens more heroes, weapons, tomes, extra slots, and quality of life perks so that the game keeps expanding sideways instead of just getting easier. It's horde survival tuned for speed, spectacle, and uncut addiction, which is exactly why it belongs on any serious list of this year's standouts. Number 3. Carimara, Beneath the Forlorn Limbs. This is a brief narrative horror adventure from solo developer Bastinus Rex, published by Critical Reflex, where you inhabit the Carimara, a small moss-covered spirit called in to fix a ghost problem for an old lady who treats the supernatural like it's a plumbing issue. Almost everything happens in and around a single crooked cottage and the forest wrapped around it, the rooms packed with trinkets, roots pushing through the floorboards, loose feathers tucked into corners, and an owl that watches you with the energy of a neighbor who already has your plate number in their phone. The game is about turning every object and hint into a conversation tool and then trying to not deeply offend anyone with it. You see, the Carimara speaks by turning important ideas into cards, building a deck of names, objects, grudges, and half-truths that you slot into dialogue spaces or rituals to nudge scenes along, with responses changing depending on how tactless you just were. You'll wander the house and its grounds, expand that set of cards, and slowly map out what everyone is hiding while the mood drifts between mildly awkward to spiritually unsafe. What makes Carimara stand out is how compact and focused it stays throughout, a single sitting story that treats your deck like case notes and lets the unease settle in one carefully chosen word at a time. Number 4. Escape from Duckov. Assuming you haven't been living under a rock, you've probably heard of this one. It's a single-player, top-down looter shooter from Team Soda, where you customize a small feathered operator, stash them in an underground bunker, and send them into raids across the collapsing world of Duckov to grab supplies, run jobs for other birds, and drag anything valuable back to safety. The presentation sits in a strange middle ground. Bright colors, round cartoon ducks, and chunky guns on the surface, with a straight-faced extraction shooter design underneath, including fixed maps with randomized loot spots and a ticking clock on every escape. Every threat you face is another bird in mismatched tactical gear, which means the AI is going to punish your sloppy movement, but at least nobody will be stream sniping you. A welcome change for anyone who likes Tarkov-style tension without human opponents. It has already turned into one of the year's breakout hits, quacking up millions in sales, peaking in the hundreds of thousands of concurrent players, and sitting at an overwhelmingly positive review bar on Steam, which is damn impressive for a game about armed poultry. Number 5. Mars First Logistics. If Escape from Duckov is what you play whenever you don't live under a rock, then Mars First Logistics is what you play whenever you do. But that rock probably won't be there for long. You see, this is a physics-driven engineering sim set on a stylized version of Mars, where your job is to design and build rovers, and then use them to haul awkward cargo between remote outposts across a big ol' open map. The art is clean and cartoonish, all soft lines and red sand, which keeps things approachable even when your machine looks like a shopping cart welded to a crane. Underneath that friendly look, though, there is a very methodical core, contracts to take, money to earn, new parts to unlock, and a colony that slowly fills the horizon with domes and towers as you keep doing your rounds. You'll snap together frames, wheels, pistons, and grabbers, wire up controls, and then trundle out to see which piece you forgot to reinforce this time, with the terrain and cargo shape deciding most of your troubles. Deliveries sound simple enough, but each one becomes a small engineering puzzle where you'll either solve the problem or invent a whole new type of accident altogether. Mars First Logistics works because every delivery feels like a small story about overconfidence and stubborn engineering, and taken as a whole, it's just a damn good game. Number 6. The first Berserker, Khazan. This game opens on a man whose entire empire has decided that he is disposable, and then hands you the sword he plans to disagree with. To put it simply, this is a Souls-like, set in a European-style dark fantasy world that shares a universe with the anime Dungeon Fighter, but does not expect you to have studied for that exam. You play Khazan, a disgraced general dragging himself back through snowy passes, war camps, and haunted cities to untangle who framed him and why. The game is cel-shaded, anime-inspired brutality through and through. It feels stylized, which is useful when something the size of a small house is telegraphing an attack in your general direction. Once the fighting kicks in, it's all about stamina and keeping pressure. Every swing, block, and dodge pulls from the same bar, and running it dry leaves Khazan open, so you're always counting out attacks in your head while watching enemy stamina for that stagger that lets you cash out with a brutal finisher. Levels are structured as missions full of shortcuts, checkpoints, and hidden loot that feed back into the crevice, which is the central hub where you turn lacrima into stat points, swap gear sets, and pick the next place that you'll totally not regret underestimating. All things considered, Khazan is a sharp-looking, hard-hitting, stamina-focused brawler where every death will pay you back in currency, and every boss fight victory feels like it's earned through pure stubbornness and not throwing your controller out the window. Number 7. Eclipsium. This is what happens whenever someone decides your next horror game should look like a cursed 90s computer graphics demo and feel like a hallucinogenic report stretched out over 3 hours. What we're dealing with here is a first-person cosmic horror adventure where you play the Wanderer, trudging through a sunless world in search of a figure only referred to as her. What we get along the way are hellish tombs, cathedrals made out of meat, and distant cosmic horizons that feel like they were built out of low-poly nightmares and FMV body parts taped together. To play this game is to allow it to drag you through a sequence of hostile spaces where you poke at strange machinery and try not to think too hard about what any of it would feel like in real life. You'll move slowly, following a pale guiding light, solving light puzzles about opening paths and manipulating the environment, and the occasional unpleasant sacrifice to push deeper, while your warped transmuting hand acts as the main tool that interacts with the world. Death sends you back to a central hub that rewires itself based on your progress, so the game stays unnerving without turning into a jagged restart loop. The magic here is how tightly the visuals, sound, and pacing all align. Eclipsium is very vague, and honestly, you prefer it that way, because by the time the game is done with you, you have had a complete self-contained panic attack in video game form, and, that's awesome. Number 8, Baby Steps. My god, this game destroyed my life. In Baby Steps, you play as a 35-year-old failed son in a stretched-out onesie who gets yanked out of his parents' basement and dropped into a misty mountain with one job: figure out how to walk uphill without dying of embarrassment. You see, the whole world is one long slope threaded with cables, planks, cliffs, and strange little encounters. There's no level select, it's just one long, awkward-ass hike up. It comes from the minds behind QWOP and Getting Over It, which explains why simply putting one foot in front of the other is treated like a bloody boss fight. Every step is manual labor, one trigger per leg, careful weight shifts, tiny corrections with the stick, and the constant dread that a toe will catch and send you skating back down half a hillside. One could definitely call Baby Steps a simple game. There's no skill tree, no fast traveling, no gear treadmill. It's just you getting incrementally better at driving this floppy man through mud, ledges, and cruel little set pieces like the Manbreaker, which is a brutal optional cliffside route that exists purely to test your patience. For the record, I took the hard way up that damn thing, refusing the perfectly good staircase sitting right next to it because pride is a hell of a drug. And that's the real punchline of Baby Steps. The mountain doesn't change, you do. And by the time you're past the Manbreaker, you're unreasonably proud of every single step that got you there.
Jim!
Yes, boys!
Nathan?
Oh,
I did it!
You did it!
Number 9 is BallXPit.
So we're taking the old bounce a ball into bricks idea and replace the bricks with monsters, loot, and a ruined city that refuses to stay dead, and that's BallXPit. It's a single-player, brick-breaking roguelite where you control an adventurer at the bottom of a vertical arena, auto-firing balls into waves of enemies that march slowly towards you. As you wipe out monsters, you scoop up gems, level up, and pick new balls or passives, turning a modest little volley into a screen-filling storm of beams, explosions, and ricochets. The story framing is simple. Balbalon, which, great name by the way, gets turned into a hole in the ground, and the valuables are still down there, and you're just reckless enough to keep riding the elevator back in to go get them. Between dives, you head to New Balbalon, the actual city builder layer, where you'll place structures, assign workers, and turn harvested resources into permanent upgrades and new characters. Buildings tweak how your runs behave, so you can unlock fresh heroes with different starting kits and open deeper elevator tiers so the pit keeps evolving alongside your base. The game is so damn addictive because both halves keep feeding each other. Better runs make for a stronger town makes for better runs, and next thing you know you haven't slept in 3 days because you can't stop playing with balls. Number 10 is Mudborne. So it starts with a frog dragging itself out of hibernation to find the pond empty, the ecosystem broken, and nobody on staff to fix it but you. It's a cozy nature management sim where you, that slightly bewildered frog, set out to rebuild the local wetland by discovering and breeding new frog species, and then using their traits as literal keys to reopen paths across a network of ponds and the strange dream world setting beside them. The whole thing is wrapped in a warm blanket of old school pixels and warm lighting, with an ambient soundscape of synth chimes and distant croaks that makes life in a swamp sound suspiciously appealing. It looks like a pleasant little wetland, and it is, as long as you ignore how often you have to rearrange amphibian DNA like it's Jurassic Park. And in that practice, Mudborne feels like biology homework that somehow became relaxing. You catch frogs, send pairs into spawning machines, and nudge their offspring into magic mud and carefully cultivated mushrooms until the genes line up in exactly the right pattern to unlock new pools or satisfy extremely picky stone fountains. Rare fungi only grow in specific biomes and conditions. Long-term breeding lines are required for certain gates, and every new species you discover becomes part of a quiet little toolbox of traits you will keep referencing as the map opens up. The whole thing settles into a satisfying rhythm of planning breeding lines and pushing one more generation through the mud just to see what jumps out. For a year stacked with crazy headline releases, Mudborne earns its place by turning one modest frog pond into a lovely nightly ritual that you'll be happy to return to. Number 11. Necesse. This is a top-down sandbox action-adventure that finally hit version 1.0 in October 2025 after years in early access, built around an infinite, seamless world of forests, caves, oceans, and dungeons stick together with no loading screen. You'll start with a small patch of dirt and a couple of workstations, and then push outward, founding settlements, recruiting settlers, and slowly turning a lonely campfire into a village with orchards and workshops, plus a bunch of residents who will cheerfully fight pirate captains and dragons for you as long as the food keeps appearing on schedule. The overall mood lands somewhere between cozy survival and low-grade world domination, the kind of place where pixelated sunsets are pretty right up until the local dungeon reminds you why your guard budget keeps going up. Day to day, Necesse is about juggling expeditions and infrastructure. You head out to carve through dungeons or strip mine another section of the map for ore, while back home your settlers plant crops, process materials, restock chests, and sell the overflow through trading posts that can be tuned with ridiculous precision. Combat plays out like many other snappy action RPGs out there, with ranged weapons and melee gear sharing space with magic builds, and the game lets you reshuffle talents and equipment often enough that trying something new doesn't ever feel like a threat. In co-op, one friend can disappear into wiring and automation, while another obsessively decorates bedrooms, and the world scales its bosses, so nobody gets to coast. What makes Necesse special in this 2025 pile-up is how cleanly the loop locks together. Exploration feeds your settlement feeds your build experiments, and suddenly, I'll just hop on for a bit, has turned into a long argument with yourself about chess priorities and regional taxation policy. Number 12. The Drifter. What we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is a point-and-click adventure from Australian studio Powerhoof. All sharp pixel art, big animation swings, and a dark synth soundtrack that sounds like someone wired a VCR into a nightmare. You'll follow Mick Carter, a worn-down drifter heading back to his old life, who gets killed, stands back up a few seconds later, and realizes the universe has decided that he's not done suffering yet. That near-death stutter becomes the hook for a story that leans into noir, conspiracy, and low-level cosmic weirdness without ever turning into a lore wiki. The whole thing has that late-night paperback energy, the kind you promise you will put down after the next chapter, but absolutely do not. It plays like a classic point-and-click adventure that got juiced. You'll guide Mick through docks, trains, and back alleys, talk to people who are all hiding something, and solve puzzles built around a lean inventory and clear context. So you'll spend more time chasing tension and less time rubbing every item on every hotspot. Twin-stick controls means it works just as well on gamepad as with a mouse, and the pacing almost never lets up, with scenes snapping into each other like panels in a comic. In a year packed with huge open worlds, The Drifter earns its spot by being tight, stylish, and relentless enough that you finish it in just a few settings and then immediately start recommending it to anyone and everyone who will listen, like I'm doing to you right now. Number 13. Schedule 1. In Schedule 1, you're dropped into Highland Point, a grimy West Coast city where the local growth industry is absolutely not for tourists. This is an open-world crime and business simulator from solo developer TVGS, where you go from small-time pusher with no cash and no contacts to running a citywide empire of grow rooms, labs, corner dealers, and front businesses. You're walking, skating, or driving across whole districts, meeting suppliers, scouting properties, and trying to keep your operation one step ahead of both the cops and the cartel that would very much like you to stop succeeding. You would swear on one level the game has a serious tone, but the dialogue, the radio chatter, and general attitude are very aware that you have chosen illegal logistics as a hobby. And that hobby will become the centerpiece and bulwark of the systems you'll be dealing with. You'll set up grow ops and labs with hands-on mixing and crafting minigames, tune batches for different effects, and build out tile-based interiors that shape how efficient each spot is. From there, you stitch together a distribution network of street dealers, delivery routes, and legitimate-looking businesses that launder your income, and then expand into new neighborhoods while the police presence and a rival cartel react to how aggressive you're being. The combination of street-level hustle and higher-level management has landed incredibly well. Players are already sinking dozens of hours into early access. The reviews are strong, and word of mouth has pegged it as one of the year's biggest successes. And my game of the year is BallXPit.
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 Yeah, BallXPit.